What is unusual about the chitas of today? Well, the answer is that there's two different ways for the aliyahs to be divided. I think some customs... No, just Vayigash, plain old Vayigash. Some people finish V'ichlu es chayla va'aretz, and then tomorrow they finish ותחי רוח Yaakov אביהם, and they join together our like Chamishi and Revi, or Chamishi and Shishi. We, Chabad, have a different division. The way we divide aliyahs, today we have a longer chitas. Yesterday's chitas was pretty short. Right, Lefleita Gedola. I think yesterday's chitas finished, right? Am I right? Yesterday's chitas you learned? Today we go, in most communities, we're reading the chitas of Shlisha and Revi together. ותחי רוח אביהם, and then the next pasuk begins, ויאמר יעקב רב עוד יוסף בני חי. And I'm going to go to Mitzrayim and see him before I pass away. Now why am I saying this to you? Besides for the fact that I want to be a nudnik, which is my favorite job. Does anybody know why I'm bringing this up? I don't hold it against you for not knowing, because you're far too young. But if you do know, it's very impressive. The answer, girls, is that Chamisha Teves, Tafshin Mem Zayin, which is now 36 years. 36 years. Now remember, 36 years ago, I was your age. I was, in Tafshin Mem Zayin, I was 21. I guess a little older than you are. Just a little. Was Chamisha Teves on a Tuesday? Hey Teves, did ever call it Chamisha Teves? This is one of my obsessions, one of my brainwashing efforts. In Tafshin Nun Beis, that means the year of the stroke, the Rebbe repeatedly called it Chamisha Teves. He didn't say Hey Teves once. If the Rebbe had not had a stroke, there's no doubt in my mind that everybody would recognize that the name of this Yom Tov is not Hey Teves, but Chamisha Teves, because the Rebbe changed the name. But he did it in Nun Beis, so you need a Meshugana like me to hold on to this. I remember at the Fabrengen, I was standing near a very Chassidish Yid, and he pokes me in the back. He says, the Yom Tov hat a naya nomen. The Yom Tov has a new name. Shabbos, Tafshin Nun Beis, I think it was Zayin Teves. I think it was the same as this year. Hey Teves was a Thursday. So Shabbos, Zayin Teves, the Rebbe spoke about Chamisha Teves, but the whole Fabrengen, he said Chamisha and not Hey. So in this class, and hopefully I can brainwash you to take it out of this class, the name of the Yom Tov is Chamisha Teves. The Rebbe changed the name from Hey Teves to Chamisha Teves. But Tafshin Mem Zayin, we won the first case before there was the appeal. Chamisha Teves was on Tuesday. And the chitas finishes ותחי רוח Yaakov אביהם. Now girls, if you have a chitas, open up, look what Rashi says. Vayigash Shlishi. In our custom, right? ותחי רוח Yaakov אביהם, what does Rashi? What does Rashi say? ותחי, the last pasuk of the chitas. The last pasuk of today. In other words, one pasuk before the V. ותחי רוח Yaakov אביהם, what does Rashi? Sharsa Allah Shechina. Keep reading. Sheparsha mimenu, continue. That's it. Right, we have a rule. Now girls, I want you to think about this, girls. Okay, I want you to think about this. We have a rule. The Eina Shechina Sheira Ela Miteich Simcha. We're talking about Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu was a pretty big tzaddik, right? I think we can all agree Yaakov was a pretty big tzaddik, yeah. Yaakov was a makava for lakus. Yaakov was an incredible Navi. For 22 years he lost his Ruach HaKodesh. For 22 years he lost his Ruach HaKodesh. Why? Because he was sad. And he could not be consoled. Why could he not be consoled? Because Yosef was still alive. And then he finds out, Eid Yosef Chai, right? So ותחי רוח Yaakov אבינו, says Rashi, Yaakov Avinu got back his Ruach HaKodesh. Now girls, how much seichel do you need to apply that to Hey Teves? The Rebbe spoke that afternoon. I don't know if you remember, you know the story. I mean, you weren't born, right? The Rebbe, what happened was, I was in Los Angeles at the time. I was not here, I was in California. And the Rosh Hashiva did not let us come in for that week of Fabrengen. We came from the mikvah, it was at 8:45, which means that in New York it's about 11:45. About 9:15 in the morning on Chamisha Teves on Tuesday, Yud Krinsky was called to come to the court, and the court called both sides. The judge called both sides. It took him exactly a year. The trial took place Yudskis of Chanukah Memvov, 1985 to 86. It was exactly a year later, 85 to 86 to 87. Memzayin. He called them, and he gave them the verdict. And the verdict was black and white. There was no pshara. There was no compromise. We won everything, and they lost everything. So Yudel came running. I mean, the story goes, Yudel came running into the Rebbe. He came into 7:7. He ran into the Rebbe at 11:15. He ran into the Rebbe's room to tell the Rebbe the Psura Teva. The Rebbe didn't even look up. But the Rebbe was working. The only thing the Rebbe said was, you have to go tell the Rebbe. Because the Rebbetzin, the only time that Lubavitcher Chassidim saw the involvement of our Rebbetzin, Chayamushka, who hid in the house, fighting as a partner with the Rebbe in an open way, was the Pashas HaSfara. But the Rebbe didn't even stop what he was doing. He didn't stop for an instant. Came Mincha. In those times, the Rebbe davened Mincha upstairs in the small shul. And they asked the Rebbe to come downstairs. The Rebbe walked downstairs into the shul. The place was wild. It was chadarah. There were people who were already under the table finished. They were so shaken, they were done already. The Rebbe walked into the shul. They found a way of not saying Tachnun. The Rebbe made believe like he doesn't see what's going on. There was so much noise. The noise, it was like Simchas Torah. The Rebbe walked into the shul, didn't make with his hand, didn't smile, didn't show any indication that he was participating in this. In the middle of Chazar Sashatz, the Rebbe asked for a chumash. I remember listening to Yonason Hackner announce on the hookup. Excitedly, the Rebbe asked for a chumash. And after Mincha, the Rebbe said a sicha. The Rebbe spoke a sicha. And the sicha spoke many things, but the Rebbe spoke about vatchir Yaakov Avihem. At the time, people were saying that if the Rebbe had shown any indication of simcha, the building would have collapsed. The Chassidim were so energized they didn't need any help. And the Rebbe spoke a sicha. The sicha that the Rebbe spoke Tuesday, Chamisha Teves, 36 years ago, Toshmam Zayin, it's an incredible sicha. And I'm going to share with you the toichen of the sicha because I want you to hear this. But the most important thing to me was the Rebbe spoke vatchir Yaakov. He didn't say what Rashi says, but it was self-understood. The Rebbe was saying Yaakov Avihem lost the Ruach HaKodesh for 22 years. And by the way, if you know Chumash, there's another fellow who lost the Ruach HaKodesh for 38 years. Does anybody know who that fellow's name is? Moshe Rabbeinu. He lost his revuah for 38 years. From the story of the Meraglim until the last of the Yidden died in the Midbar, it never says Vayedaber, it only says Vayomer, because Hashem's Ruach HaKodesh was diminished. And when the last, the famous story of Chamisha Teves, the last Yidden who was supposed to die, they didn't die. Vayedaber Hashem alai lemer. Rashi says this. So you have an example from Yaakov Avinu for 22 years, an example from Moshe Rabbeinu for 38 years, with an example from our Rebbe for 2 years. Now, I don't know what it means that a Rebbe loses his Ruach HaKodesh, because the Rebbe was doing just fine between Tafshin Mem Hey and Tafshin Mem Zayin. But that this, the Danotzach, should occur in Tuesday of Pashas Vayigash could not have been choreographed better. How many Pashas are there in the Chumash? Anybody? 53 or 54. Jews managed to always have a problem. Yeah? You have 7 aliyahs. So how do you do? What is 54 times 7? Anybody? 50 times 7 is 350. And 4 times 7 is 28. So there's 378 possible chitases in the whole year. Find a better one for Hey Teves. It's not even close. There's no second. This is the perfect chitas. Why? What was the taina? What was the taina of the other side? And please let's talk about family. Let's save that for a rainy day, okay? And the taina was the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away. And the property of the Frierdiker Rebbe was personal property. And because it's personal property, they could divide it amongst themselves. What was the Rebbe's taina? There were 2 tainas. There was a nigla taina and there was a nister taina. The nigla taina was that the Frierdiker Rebbe officially made his house and the Sfarim the property of Agudas Chassidei Chabad, which is a fact. Agudas Chassidei Chabad legally owned 770. Do you know that the Frierdiker Rebbe paid rent every month to live in 770? The Frierdiker Rebbe called in a man and said, I want you to be the business manager. Every month come to me, collect a check for rent, for living in 770. Wait, so their taina was Wiedeke passed away. Right? What was the Rebbe's taina? That he made it public. Now, what was the Chassidische taina? What was the Pnimius taina? Anybody? That the Rebbe's alive. What does it say in Tuesday of Pashas Vayigash? Oid Yosef Chai. Right? Oid Yosef Chai. What's the Frierdiker Rebbe's name? Yosef. You can't make this up. There's 378 chitas in the Chumash. There is no close second. You could not have had a perfect chitas for the Didan Notzach than Tuesday of Pashas Vayigash, and that's exactly how it fell. Chamisha Teves. And on top of that, you have the fact that there's two nuschos, and our nusach punkt is that we do the longer shiur for Tuesday, and it finishes vatchhi ruach yain k'mavina sharsal of shchina sheparshim imenu. Imagine Chassidim are listening to the Rebbe say this. I was a big boy. I wasn't a kid, and I remember the Rebbe never said befedish, hey, I got my ruach hakodesh back. The Rebbe didn't say that, and I don't know. I believe me. I promise you, he didn't lose it. But something when the Rebbe said vatchhi ruach yain k'mavina, he didn't say what Rashi says. But anybody with half a brain knew what Rashi said. And what did Rashi say? That Yaakov was in a matter of sadness, and for 22 years. He finds out that Yosef HaTzadik is still alive, and he gets his Ruach HaKodesh back. So Chassidim hear this. So how do Chassidim feel about Chamisha Teves? I just want to say this up front and provocatively and in your face. Don't even think about saying Tachlan on Thursday. Don't even think about it. And then the old croaks who are still not sure, tell him you're not talking to them for a month. Chamish, if you didn't say Tachlan Yitas Kislev, you for sure shouldn't say Tachlan. This is Yitas Kislev. Chamisha Teves is not a joke. In Pnimiyat Torah, the Rebbe went to jail. That's how the Rebbe looked at it. The Dan Notzach is a serious thing. It's not about books and it's not about politics. It's an Inya Pnimi B'Yoyser. This whole story is an Inya Pnimi B'Yoyser, and it's a big Yom Tov. And the toichan of the Yom Tov is Yosef Chai. I need to tell you something. When Gimel Tammuz happened, it was Nun Daled, almost right away, within a day or two or three, I started giving classes in 770 to women. Those classes have gone on for 30 years. They're sort of within a week, And those classes have been going on for 30 years. In the beginning, I used to get 100 ladies. Then I got 6 ladies. Then I got 2 ladies. Then I got 1 lady. Then I got 0 ladies. But in the beginning, after Gimel Tammuz, that summer, everybody came to the classes. And I remember the first Hey Teves, Nun Hey. It was a very painful time. It was a very hard time. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it was very hard. And I said, what I just told you, that the story of the Sfarim is Oid Yosef Chai. So it was an older woman. She's still alive, and now she's old. Then she was older. She's older than my parents. And she says, it's not over. Those were her words. It's not over. The story of Chamisha Teves is what? It's a story, I'll say it to you in blunt words, about the mortality of a Rebbe. What mortality means? You speak English. Mortality means that everything has a beginning and it has an end. Physically. The Rebbe spoke about the Frierdiker Rebbe 1,000 times. The Frierdiker Rebbe is still alive, still alive, still alive, still alive. And how did we understand all those siches? When the Rebbe said the Frierdiker Rebbe is still alive, he meant him. Unfortunately, the Maimed Matra that you and I are living in, the idea that by a Rebbe there's no hefsek is so serious. The idea that even though physically we don't have the Rebbe, but the Rebbe is alive, is the foundation of our life, of your life. And it's not something esoteric. It's something you see b'muchash. It's something that you see with your own eyes. You see b'muchash, everybody knows how living the oil is, how living the Rebbe is, how living Lubavitch is. You think Lubavitchers are special people? Lubavitchers are not, just like Jews. You think Jews are special people? God loves them. You think Lubavitchers are special people? Not special. We have a special Rebbe. And the fact that Lubavitch today is what it is because Oy Yosef Chai, this Rebbe lives. Does he ever live? Now you hear this at all the Fabrengens, but it's true. It's not true because it says in the Sichets. It's not true because this is the rhetoric. It's true because you see it with your eyes. You see reality, what it means that a person whose physical goof is missing, and his presence in this world, his his hashpah, and even his hadracha, his teaching, and his direction is so current. I don't know if you saw this the other day. Someone sent it right on the WhatsApp. I was sick, so I had plenty of time to waste, Baruch Hashem. And I really, God knows I don't waste a lot of time. But I was instructed to do nothing. So there's a Borough Park, Aracham Strifke Rebbe. He's a very old man. He came to the Rebbe before he got married in 1953. And now it's 2022. It's a long time ago. Anyway, he was ill. And Aracham Strifke, Borough Park, one of his Hasidim went to the oil. And after he went to open the biggest Kaddish, and the Rebbe gave a bracha for the Refuah Shleima, and the Rebbe writes, we're questioning about doctor, you should take a from doctor. And when he comes back to his shtibel in Borough Park, and he mentions to one of the sons of the Racham Strifke Rebbe that he went to the oil, and that he opened up an Igris. And the Igris Kaddish said they should choose a from doctor. So as soon as the brother sees it, he calls up his other brothers, look what the Rebbe wrote in Igris. They were having an argument, the two brothers, about their father, what kind of doctor they should use. Another person goes to the oil, opens up an Igris, and comes back with a fatik and then you should take a from doctor. This is a story that happened 3 days ago. And there are stories like these every day. And that's the story of Chamisha Teves. Oid Yosef Chai. The goof is missing, unfortunately. So now, if you think again, I'm stuck on the chitas. Tuesday, Chamisha Teves, Tovshim Mem Zayin was the Dan Notzach. And the Rebbe came downstairs unplanned. The place was rocking. They found some head that of saying Tachna. They found the Psachosen. And by the way, don't even think about saying Tachna on Thursday. And please say it in my name with all the arrogance and all the chutzpah of a young chassid. If you didn't say Tachna, you just kiss it. When you say Tachna, hey Teves, take a time machine and go back and be a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. That's my take. It's not complicated. Our Rebbe somehow is less Rebbe. He's 10 times more Rebbe, 100 times more Rebbe. So if you didn't say Tachna, you just kiss it, because the Chag HaGul, the Alter Rebbe, that happened in Tovkuf Nuntes, this happened in Tovshim Mem Zayin. I understand, it's not your lifetime, but by Chassidim, there's no question. This is a Chag HaGeula. And in the Chag HaGeula, we don't say Tachna, period. But I want to tell you the more important thing. And this is what's mind-blowing. Okay? What I am sharing with you now is Siches. Okay? I'm not making up one word. Much of what I'm saying, you have to understand. The actual court case took place from Yutas Kislev until Chanukah Mem Vav, the year before. 1985 to 86. It took exactly a year for the judge to come back with his verdict. In other words, the trial was held through Yutas Kislev and Chanukah. Chanukah finishes Beis Gimel Tevis. 1 year later, the judge gave his verdict. During the time that the case was going on, the Rebbe went to the oil every day, 5-6 days a week. They went to the oil. Every day there was a case, the Rebbe went to the oil. Now, Kinderlach, Chanukah Tovshin Mem Vov. The Rebbe verbringt Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, Sunday night. 3 verbringings at the end of Chanukah in Tovshin Mem Vov. Again, I wasn't here. I was in California. I missed all of this. I mean, we heard the hookups, but I wasn't here. What did the Rebbe speak of those verbringings? And again, I want you to understand that I'm not saying one single word of my own. I'm chazering divrei harav. The Rebbe told the story with the Pinchas Koretzer that everybody knows. What's the story with the Pinchas Koretzer? That the Mezritcher Magid was revealing Chassidus more than the Baal Shem Tov. And a page of Chassidus in the Mezritcher Magid ended up on the floor. Pinchas Koretzer found that page. And he was very upset. And he was thinking, Pinchas was talking about the Baal Shem Tov, that by the Rebbe this would never happen. A page of Chassidus ending up on the street, on the floor. He was makpid against the Mezritcher Magid. And the teichen of the Kpeda was that the Mezritcher Magid is not careful. He's teaching Chassidus to what we would call in Yiddish culture, abi vedlikis, unqualified, undeserving people. And the Pinchas was upset. And the Pinchas Koretzer walks into the Beis HaMedrash holding this piece of paper, right? What happens next? Anybody? The Alter Rebbe sees him. And the Alter Rebbe sees he's upset. And the Alter Rebbe understands why he's upset. So he walks over to Pinchas Koretzer and he tells him the famous story with the Even Tev Shebekeser HaMelech, with the prince who's dying, right? And they have to take the crown and they smash it up and they take out the stone and they grind it into a powder and they give it to the prince and they save his life, right? Everybody knows that story. So the Rebbe told us the Pechas Charetzer, and he said, what does that mean? There was a kpeda against Chassidus. In times of the Is Chamisha. What was the kpeda? Anybody? That he's revealing too much. Right? It was revealing too much. And the Is Chamisha's life was pashat in sakona, as they stated the siches, in the Friedrich siches. So the Alter Rebbe told the story with the Evan Derkes HaMelech, and he removed the kpeda. So the Rebbe continues. The next generation, the Alter Rebbe goes to jail. When the Alter Rebbe is sitting in jail, he's visited by his Rabbeim, right? By the Mizitcha Magid and the Baal Shem Tov. And the Mizitcha Magid and the Baal Shem Tov visit the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe says, why am I sitting in jail? And they answer him, what do they answer him? You're spreading too much chassidus. You're spreading too much chassidus. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, I'll stop. And they said, no. If you get out of here, you should reveal more. Am I telling you anything you don't know? Anybody? You know all of this, right? So the Rebbe said, what was the kpeda? The Mizitcha Magid already had a kpeda. And the Alter Rebbe removed it. So why in the next generation is another kpeda? So the Rebbe said, because the Alter Rebbe revealed more. And you will reveal more, the Tzaddik Keneged has a bigger taina. But then the Rebbe added words. What is the taina of the Tzaddik Keneged? The taina, how could you have a taina revealing Chassidus? Chassidus is a good thing. Chassidus is a good thing. How could you have a taina for revealing Chassidus? Chassidus is a good thing. Girls, what's the answer to that question?
It was at the right time.
Okay, that's a good answer, but there's a better answer. That we weren't using it. The Alter Rebbe is revealing Chassidus, that's a good thing. But if the Alter Rebbe reveals Chassidus and we don't learn it, that's where the kpeda comes in. The Mizitcha Magid went to jail almost, because he was revealing Chassidus and apparently they didn't do it enough. The Alter Rebbe went to jail b'poil. The Mittler Rebbe went to jail b'poil. Why? Because they were revealing more Chassidus, but the kpeda wasn't that they were revealing Chassidus. The kpeda was that they were revealing Chassidus and Chassidim were not using it well enough. Should I say it again, or you got it? I'm saying it again. When the Mizitcha Magid, when the Alter Rebbe went to jail, and the Mittler Rebbe went to jail, this is how it's explained in the Siches. This is what the Rebbe said a year earlier, in 1985 to 86, Tafshin Mem Vav, that Chassidim did not use the Chassidus that the Rabbeim gave them. And because the Chassidim did not use the Chassidus that the Rabbeim gave them, the kpeda on the Rebbe. You got it?
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to our generation, the Fashtunkene Deira Shvi after the Holocaust. Tuesday, Chamisha Teves, Tov Shin Mem Zayin. Girls, nobody should trust me. Take out the Sikh and look it up yourself. The Rebbe says, you listening? The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, there's a taina against Agudas Chasidei Chabad. There's a complaint against Agudas Chasidei Chabad. Every Lubavitcher is a member of Agudas Chasidei Chabad. The taina is, as Agudas Chasidei Chabad, there's nish genug aktiv, and we're not doing enough. And because we're not doing enough, that's why there's a Maisa with Tzvarim. Just like by the Alter Rebbe, right? You listening?
Yeah.
Just like by the Mittler Rebbe, there was a taina. And then the Rebbe, our Rebbe, continues. And he says, straight out, quote, it's impossible to say that we haven't done enough. The Alter Rebbe's Chassidim didn't do enough. You listening? The Mittler Rebbe's Chassidim didn't do enough. And our Rebbe says publicly, and I beg you not to trust me, take out the Sikha, there's an audio, there's a video, and there's a Hanacha. It's not Muga, but there's a transcript of this. The Rebbe says it's impossible to say in our generation that we haven't done enough. In other words, the Rebbe, who's a pretty good judge, you think the Rebbe's a pretty good judge? I think he's a pretty good judge, yeah. Said, the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim didn't use the Chassidus enough. The Mittler Rebbe's Chassidim didn't use the Chassidus enough. You cannot say about us, Deira Shri, us, that we haven't used the Chassidus enough. So then the Rebbe had a kasha. Why did I go to jail? Why would there was a Maisa with Tzvarim? By the Alter Rebbe, we understand why. The Alter Rebbe revealed a lot of Chassidus. The Chassidim didn't use it well enough, so there was a kpeda. By the Mittler Rebbe, the Mittler revealed on Ashir Chassidus. Mittler Rebbe gave Chassidus without any limits. The Chassidim didn't use it, so there was a kpeda, so the Mittler Rebbe went to jail. But you cannot say about our generation, this is what the Rebbe said, girls. You cannot say about us, about our generation, that we didn't use the chassidus that we were given enough. So why was there kpeda? Why did the Rebbe go to jail? Why were the Sfarim taken? You hear what the Rebbe is saying? The Rebbe is saying, and I'm going to say it in a very grubber way, that we're better than the Chassidim the Alter Rebbe. No, we're not. We're a little Buddhishkes. But in this aspect, that the Alter Rebbe Chassidim didn't use the Chassidus that they were given enough. At the middle Rebbe Chassidim didn't use the Chassidus. And the Rebbe said explicitly, and I beg you for the fourth time, please don't trust me. Take out the Sicha and look and see it inside. The Rebbe says, it's it's impossible to say about us, our generation, Teira Shvi, that we didn't use the chassidus that we were given enough. So then why did we go to jail? Why would the Sfarim take? This was the kasha that the Rebbe asked on Tuesday, Chamisha Teves Tov Shin Mem Zayin. Now today is only Gimel Teves, but it's the same day of the week, Tuesday, ותחי Yaakov Avihem. And the teretz that the Rebbe gave, Kindalach, is the answer that the Rebbe gave. They said, the only answer I have. The Rebbe said, I have a kasha. I don't have a teretz. The only answer I have is that we did more than we expected to. But the Eibishter wants even more. That's what the Rebbe said. The Eibishter wants even more. That was the Rebbe's teretz. To say that the Sfarim were taken because we didn't do enough, you can't say. Impossible. So then why were the Sfarim taken? Why did this whole thing happen?
Too far.
So the Rebbe said, because the Eibishter wants it, we should do even more. So here's our Rebbe, standing in a room full of his chassidim, and believe me, the Rebbe has a pretty good idea who the Alter Rebbe's chassidim were. And he has a pretty good idea of who his chassidim are. And he says, Pepe Mole. But the Alter Rebbe chassidim, they didn't use it enough. By the Middle Rebbe chassidim, we didn't use it enough. We did! So Rebbe say, why were the Sfarim taken? Because the Eibishter is sending us a message that we should do even more. Now fast forward 36 years, right? Since Mem Zayin till Pei Gimel is 36 years. Right? Twice Chai for the Derech Rishumas and the Derech Chamuris, whatever makes you happy. Yeah? The Rebbe is saying, the Eibishter made this whole situation Amazal Tanach. Now I don't want to interpret this. I really don't want to. I don't want to say what the Rebbe meant. But look at Lubavitch today and look at Lubavitch when the Rebbe spoke those sichos. What has happened in the last 36 years? Realize the Rebbe had been a Rebbe exactly for 36 years. If you think about it, if you start counting the Rebbe's Nesiyas from Tov Shin Yudal, Mem Zayin is 36 years. Now it's twice 36 years. Think about what's happened in the 36 years since then. Lubavitch should do more. So Kindalach, girls, one of the great mistakes that happens by people when it comes to Chamisha Teves is that we get caught up in the physical facts. The tragedy of the Rebbe's family is so painful. You know, I heard that the Rebbetzin, someone walked into the Rebbetzin, Memches Take. The Rebbetzin passed away 2 months later. Somebody walked into the Rebbetzin Chamisha Teves 1 month later and said to the Rebbetzin, Gut Yom Tov, and the Rebbetzin said, in der Stube das nicht kein Yom Tov. In this house it's not a Yom Tov. That's what I heard. I've since heard other versions of it, so I don't know if this is true or not, but it sounds like the Rebbetzin, she was that sharp. But in der Stube das nicht kein Yom Tov, the family was torn to pieces. The family had been torn to pieces. The Friedrich Rebbe's Kinder, it's so impossible to understand. It's so impossible to understand how this happened with the Friedrich Rebbe's daughter and the Friedrich Rebbe's grandson, and really it begins with the Friedrich Rebbe's Rebbe's. It's impossible to understand. And it's foolish to be caught up in this parsha because we'll never ever understand it. The idea that people think of the Sfarim as books and a building, it was about books. It was about a building. I mean, I'm sure you know the story. The story in very, very brief. In the court case, the judge calls it dues. Chassidim gave maimed. There was no official amount. Everybody gave maimed whatever they wanted, whatever they could afford. But the Rebbeim took maimed. The money of maimed was officially for the personal needs of the Rebbe. The money of maimed was for the personal needs of the Rebbe. And with this money, the Rebbe lived. Our Rebbe, the Rebbe Zol Gesund Sein, People gave him maimed, but he never took it for himself. The Rebbe didn't take maimed, he gave it to tzedakah. He never took the maimed for himself. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived like Joseph Lushkin writes in his book, on a $6,000 a year annual salary. Lived like poor people. It's very strange. I don't know what to say. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived like Adamite, mamish, like poor people. They had a very limited budget, and they wouldn't take a penny for themselves from a person, mufrach. They were very, very careful, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. The mamish lived. All the Rebbeim lived nice. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived like poor people.
Did Chabad buy their house?
The house didn't belong to them. It belonged to Merkez. The house was not theirs. It never was theirs. It was Merkez. But the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived, they couldn't afford to fix their house, Pashat. I know stories. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin lived on a limited budget, and they wouldn't, what would Chassidim not do for the Rebbe? He wouldn't take a penny. But the Rebbeim were going to Maimed. Now, if the Rebbeim took Maimed, and they bought things with the money of Maimed, arguably what they bought with the money of Maimed was personal. The Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, and as soon as he got here, he incorporated Lubavitch. When the Frierdiker Rebbe bought 770, he immediately made it the property of a guch. It's not his. When the Rebbe brought his library here, he officially registered as a library of a Agudas Chassidei Chabad. He made it public. Their taina was that was for tax purposes. And the Rebbe's taina was the Frierdiker Rebbe is a ganav. He's evading taxes, mamish. The Frierdiker Rebbe is a ganav. He's trying to save himself a few dollars, so really 770 is his private property. Really the library is his private property. He made it a guch because he's saving money. This is how dirty it got. This is what it came down to. And the Rebbe said the Frierdiker Rebbe made it public because it's public. Finished. And then there's the whole pnimius that it was always public. In other words, even by the earlier Rabbeim, where the Rabbeim did not officially make it the property of the Chalav Anash. When you gave the Rebbe money for Maimed, you gave the Rebbe money for Maimed in the words of the Rebbetzin, because the Rebbe belongs to the Chassidim. If the Rebbe belongs to the Chassidim, so the property of the Rebbe belongs to the Chassidim. But in America, the Rebbe made it official. And this is what the fight was about in Das Tachten, in Chitzonius. But if you or I, especially you, because for you this is, it's important for me also, but it's more important for you. When you think about BiTeves, you think about books, you're thinking about a building, you're missing the whole real truth. The truth is, this is a shaila of Oid Yosef Chai. That's what it's a shaila about. Is the Rebbe's life a physical life? And if the Rebbe's life is a physical life, when the physical guf is not available, it's finished? Or is the Rebbe's life, like it says in Tanya, Avos Hashem and Yirus Hashem and Emunas Hashem, which has no hefsek. And this is what the Kitrug was. This is what the Kitrug was. Now understand, according to the Rebbe, there shouldn't have been a Kitrug. Why shouldn't there have been a Kitrug? Because we certainly did enough. The Alter Rebbe Chassidim should have done more. The Middle Rebbe Chassidim should have done more. The Rebbe said about us, our generation, you cannot say we didn't do enough. Not of a day, they want us to do more. Do more in what way? In the area of Eid Yosef Chai. And the idea that the life of a Rebbe is not a physical life, Ubemel, there's no hefsek. There's no hefsek. This is Chamisha Teves, girls. Why is it a big holiday? It's not about books. Go buy books Thursday. I have a problem. Because in this respect I'm old. And my son says to me, one of my children is going out of town, you have to buy them Sfarim and BiTeves because mitzvah sayeb is Sfarim. It's true. You're supposed to buy Sfarim and BiTeves. My children are very religious about it. Unfortunately, I'm not so religious about it because I have a chassadim. I'm wrong. BiTeves, Chamisha Teves, you have to buy Sfarim. But what's it about?
Learn that.
It's about the Rebbe. It's about Oid Yosef Chai. Learn this Sfarim is also very important. Chanukah is about candles. I'm asking you, Chanukah is about candles?
No.
Chanukah is about Chanukah is about Mesiras Nefesh. Everybody understands that. Chanukah is about Mesiras Nefesh. The Mesiras Nefesh is the reason the candle that should have burned for a day burned for 8. It's about Mesiras Nefesh. Chamisha Teves isn't about Sfarim. Chamisha Teves is about Oid Yosef Chai. And how important is that for you? How important is that for all of us? We have a Yom Tif. We have a day, which is a Yom Tif. And for the third time, do not even think about saying Tachlin on Thursday. What is this Yom Tif about? This Yom Tif is about that the life of a Rebbe is not a physical life. Now, 36 years ago, you could have said, well, The Frierdiker Rebbe lives in the Rebbe. But today, we all know exactly what it means. We all know exactly what it means. Because we see it, we live it.
It's about Is Chamisha.
Yes.
So on a practical level, what does that mean?
On a practical level, it means this is the ultimate day of Hiskashrus. It's the ultimate day of Hiskashrus. Now, Hiskashrus is always a funny thing. You think Hiskashrus is funny for you because you never met the Rebbe. Hiskashrus is always funny. You know why it's always funny? And I've said this to you before. You've heard this from me. One of the things that I try not to do is lie. When you looked at the Rebbe, you saw a goof, a bus of a dam. It's impossible, unless you're yourself a Rebbe, to look at the goof of a Rebbe and see what it really is. A kus. I promise you that when we were in 770, 40 years ago, 35 years ago, we forgot we were standing in whose presence we were standing. Because it was a bus of a dam. We were so blinded, we were so spoiled. It was so easy. Okay, so the idea, there's a story, there was a chassid named Rabbi Alter Simchovich. The Frierdiker came to Israel and he had a yeshiva, he was the mashpia in Teres Emes. And they were nice boys, Chassidish Abacharim, they were Yerushalayim Abacharim, they were not around the Rebbe a lot. And when the Frierdiker came to yeshiva to verbringen and opfassen sich auf the Tisha B'Av, he said, "Am I Chassidus?" When the Rebbe left, Rabbi Alter was beside himself. He was screaming at his Bachrim. Was hat gesehen? A nose hat gesehen. A lakus hat gesehen. What did you just see? A nose? You saw lakus. It's the same test for you, it's the same test for me. His kashrus, Tochter, has many levels. The simplest level of his kashrus is do what he says. Do what he says. And by the way, another thing in our pasha, right? How did yesterday's chitas finish? Sunday? Anybody? Look, check. Ich hab Zeit. Von dem hab ich Zeit. Sunday. How did Sunday's chitas finish? V'nafshei kshura b'nafshei. Where do you have in Chumish's kashrus? Vayigash. V'nafshei kshura b'nafshei. What does it mean, v'nafshei kshura b'nafshei?
And he holds him.
That the neshama of one and the neshama of the other are connected. What's his kashrus? On a chitzaniistic level, kashrus is we do it. We love chitas, we love Rambam, we do mivtzoyim, we koch sich Mashiach. Those are good things. The pnimis of his kashrus, it's a spirit. It's your neshama and the Rebbe's neshama, and my neshama and the Rebbe's neshama. The Rebbe's neshama, everybody's neshama. His kashrus has many layers. The simplest level is we have to do what the Rebbe wants us to do, and do it b'tich simcha, because that's what the Rebbe wants us to do it b'tich simcha. The deepest of his kashrus, it's a spiritual connection. You will spend your entire life developing this. This is no 5 minutes. This is not even 5 years. I'm spending my entire life developing his kashrus. This is the Yom Tov of his kashrus. In a way, more than your Aleph Nissen. Rav Nissen is very personal. But this is the moyed, this is the date that's fixed in our calendar, Chamisha Teves, that says the pnimius. A Rebbe's life is not a physical life. And his Rebbe's relationship with his Chassidim is not a physical relationship. When I was growing up, I used to complain to my father. My father just got up from Shiva, he lost his sister. My father and my aunt, and her older brother, were born in the 1930s in Moscow. They should be mental cases in baskets, in wheelbarrows, you understand? They should be total losers. Their life was impossible. They had a crazy, crazy life. They got married, they had families, and they're unbelievably successful people. But they went through Shiva Madura Gehenim. The Rebbe was their father. Mamish. The Rebbe had time for them. My father told me that he came to the secretary and said, "I need an hour." An hour with the Rebbe. So he says, "Okay, but you're going to go in last." And the Rebbe spent an hour with my father. And I believe personally, it's because my father was an orphan. My father was a Yosem. The Rebbe took care of that generation. My aunt told me once, the Rebbe stopped her in the street. She was a 16-year-old girl. Was machst du? Was macht die Tate? 10 minutes. He spoke to her on the sidewalk about school. The Rebbe was a father to that generation. And I believe, I really believe, if not for the Rebbe, there'd be nothing from them. I wouldn't be born. There'd be nothing. They were so crazy. The Rebbe held them and gave them a moon in themselves and allowed them to get married and to build families and to Baruch Hashem, to go on shlichus in many cases. So I used to complain to my father, he had all this, the Rebbe gave me so much attention, and the Rebbe didn't give me any attention. My father didn't have words to say, you Meshuggah spoiled American chocolatniks. You know where I come from, you know where you come from? I mean, the comparison is so foolish. But he said to me, Yossi, which generation gave the Rebbe more shluch? Mine or yours? In percentage. How physically close you are to a Rebbe does not determine your degree of his kashrus. The Rebbe said that. Sometimes the people far away have greater iskashus, and the people closer miss it. Because iskashus are pneumistic thing. Again, the beginning of iskashus is action. The beginning of iskashus is ma'aseh b'peil. The end of iskashus is nafshei kshura ben nafshei. It's a very deep, pneumistic spiritual thing. It's going to take you your whole life. When you're an old lady in Mitzvah Hashem, you'll be a bigger makusha than you are now. Maybe you'll make less noise, and you won't be outwardly so Hasidish, but the neshama connection is going to deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen. This day is the Yom Tov of Iskashus. This day is the Nesinas Koyach. For, like the Rebbe, Lefleit Gedel, all the oasis that the Rebbe used. Right, we're in Mitzrayim, and that the head to give life to the Jewish people. All of these oasis that the Rebbe used in regard to today, to this day, to Chamisha Teves, they're all deep and important. So you ask me what to do? Buy books. That's what you should do. Buy books. But think about it. Verbring about the idea of his kashrus. And you're young. You have much more koyach than I do. You have much more tmimis than I do. You have much more will than I do. But you'll get old, you'll start realizing that you lose all of those other things, but you gain a little bit more pnimis. Kashrus is one of the deepest things. It's not simple, and it's not easy. It's real. And this day says the guf, it's not the issue. It's the nafshei, should have been nafshei. Am I answering you? Yeah.
It's a little hard.
Yeah, of course, it's a lot hard. Not a little hard, it's a lot hard. So practically buy books, as I told you. Okay, girls, we're out of time.